Good morning and welcome to Backyard and Beyond. This morning we have a guest, Dan Bechtel, with us. Good morning to you, Dan.
Good morning.
Dan, I spotted a little piece in the paper that's talked about mediation services, and that's what we want to talk about here because I think a lot of people have no idea what mediation services are. But first, let's talk just a little bit about you, Dan, a little bit about your background.
Well, my name is Dan Bechtel. I'm a native of Atlantic, Iowa. Kind of how I got down this direction, I was looking at pursuing a Juris Doctorate through Drake University. The legal profession has always kind of spoken to me. However, as I was going through some of my undergraduate work at Drake and working with restorative justice and mediation, some alternative dispute resolution models, I found that mediation was a viable option that was available and out there. And as I pursued that, I found that was a better calling that better suited me. And so I followed that track and pursued a master's level degree in conflict resolution reconciliation, and I'll begin my PhD program in conflict analysis this summer. And coming from Atlantic and researching the area, there are some services that are in Des Moines, and there are some services that are in Council Bluffs and in Omaha. However, the rural community in southwest Iowa specifically, but really in the western corridor, there's a lack of these mediation services that are available. And recently, the Fourth Judicial and the judiciary have implemented a program for family law mediation. Now, that's been left open to each of the individual districts to develop on their own. It's taken some time, but it is going forward. It has been rolled out in some counties. They're looking to get it rolled out completely in all Fourth Judicial. However, it does take time. And to be effective and to be implemented correctly, I'm glad to see that they are taking their time with that.
Okay, and this related to what's happening there, that basically has to do with divorce, people who are going through divorce? Is this...
Specifically right now, the mediation's been around for some time. It's been around in the state for about 20 years with the farm creditor crisis in the early 80s. What they've transitioned now is to the housing foreclosures, but specifically this mandate deals with family law. And family law pertains to any dissolution matter or modification matter involving minor children.
Okay. So, you kind of have to be up on what's happening with kids here, too. Even though you may not talk to the children, you have to have a lot of understanding of families and children and that sort of thing.
Mediation kind of operates within the law. It's legalistic in certain aspects because you're talking about very legal matters. It also has a therapeutic aspect to it because you're working with the relationships that are there. The maternal and paternal relationship, the child's relationship with the parents who are now going through a difficult time, a divorce, that family dynamic that is quickly changing and rapidly changing, many times for the worse because of the detriment that a divorce causes within a family relationship.
We'll come back and talk about some details here, but I think we ought to just talk about what is mediation. For some people that's going, mediation, what does that mean?
Well, there are numerous definitions for mediation, and the definition that I'll use is mediation means a process in which parties appear before an impartial third party who has no authority to adjudicate the dispute, but who, through the application of a standard mediation technique generally accepted within the professional mediation community, assists the parties in identifying the issues and then interests, exploring settlement alternatives, and fashioning the basis of an agreement.
Okay. So let's just sort of imagine we've got these people who are going to come to you who need the mediation services. What do? Do we walk into your office and say, okay, let's sit down and talk?
The normal approach is I have a website where I get contacts folks either word of mouth or call into the office. Usually I meet individually with parties for an hour to give them a brief education about what mediation is and what opportunities are there. We do a screen to make sure that mediation is an appropriate option for the family. And then we will schedule a joint session if that's the appropriate next step. Otherwise, we have other alternatives for doing mediation where the parties don't need to be in the same room. And then we meet for however many sessions that it takes. Fourth Judicial's requirement at this time is for an initial 2-hour session where the parties come and start working through some of those issues. What I have seen from my experience has been a normal family law piece usually takes between 4 to 6 sessions to work out the holiday planning, the visitation, sometimes custody, transportation, how mom and dad are going to communicate with each other about the kiddos. So it really, and it's geared and driven by the family. It really rests with them. Any of the issues or decisions that are made are theirs. The mediator simply helps them to work through and identify, kind of clear out some of the non-issues, identify what the critical issues are, and work through that process to come to an agreement if one can come to. In mediation, if parties come to an agreement on some matters, those matters don't have to be litigated. The issues that are remaining, they can then go forward to court. So it safeguards their right to go forward with litigation on matters if they choose.
Okay, and so that's one of the purposes here. I mean, there's lots of purposes, I think, but one of them is to help people, if they wish, to keep this out of court.
They will still have to go through. There are certain procedural aspects that they'll have to go through for dissolution. But by and large, the actual dissolution aspect involving the children, mediation can assist with other matters as well, asset and debt allocations and such. But the program that has been developed at this time really is geared towards a parenting plan, and that really is focused on keeping the children and their needs first and helping mom and dad to make the transition from being married to being divorced and how they're going to co-parent going forward to meet the interests and the needs of their children.
Okay. Well, children need all that support, and you often hear that children blame themselves for all this, and hopefully if mediation works and comes out well, that will help that situation. You probably can't take all of that away, but hopefully it helps keep that communication open. Now, you do mediation services, and you sort of alluded to this, for other kinds of things besides dissolution of marriage.
Mediation can assist. Quite simply, most matters that you would traditionally litigate, you can mediate. Many times that would be a first step to try to work through those issues beforehand. If you can't, then it always safeguards your right to go forward with court action. However, with mediation, you can mediate small claims matters, landlord-tenant matters, as I stated earlier, housing foreclosures, farm foreclosure matters. You can also handle elder care mediation matters if mom's in a nursing home and dad is going, or let's say dad's gone and you're having some estate issues. I worked with consulting with families on some of those family estate matters where the relationships are critical, and we've all experienced this where mom and dad are gone and the estate matters come up and it becomes very divisive. So sometimes having a neutral third party to come in and talk to mom, or to the family about what's going on and allowing them to have their interests heard and have that neutral setting and that neutral facilitator to help them to work through those issues, many times can preserve that relationship and keep the costs associated with an estate matter lessened, as opposed to everyone going forward and litigating on matters. Mm-hmm. But really, at the core, it's about the relationships, and it's about trying to have people feel and know that they've been heard, but also that they've been listened to and they've had the opportunity to talk about what their concerns are.
It would seem to be that there's the possibility of mediation to kind of lower the emotional kind of involvement. I mean, people get so angry over some of these kinds of things, and and part of it's because they don't talk to each other.
Exactly. Once communication ceases, if their emotions are intrinsically attached to a conflict, and when folks stop communicating with each other, then the conflict escalation occurs. They cease to work on issues. Harms and hurt feelings then take a firm root, and it's really hard to get that entrenched going through a litigated model. Within mediation, it allows them to talk about what's bothering them, talk about what issues are there, and really, in many cases I've worked with, it's about clarifying what the concerns or what the issues are, because many times miscommunication that stems from lack of communication between the family members in those type of issues, that is what creates the need to go forward with litigation. So many times, if you have the opportunity to sit down and really kind of just have a around the table talk about what the issues are, what the concerns are, and what are some options to go forward, many times you can alleviate the hard feelings and the damage to the relationships that many times go forward to decades later where families no longer get together.
Okay. Now, you mentioned that I think that you do have people come to your office. Do you ever meet anywhere besides your office?
We do travel. I do web conferencing as well.
Okay.
So I've worked with some folks who are in Afghanistan, some of our service members that are deployed. So the technology does allow for, if you have family members that are away in another state, we can work with that direction with web conferencing. I do travel. Many times I will use courthouses, sometimes hotels, depending on what the needs of the family are. I do travel. I've traveled into Missouri. I've traveled into Nebraska. So I do travel to meet the needs and help service the clients as best as I can.
But for a starter, let's tell them where your office is and what your phone number is.
Our offices are located at 201 Lynn Street in Atlantic, Iowa, and our phone number is 712-254-4611.
All right, and that's Southwest Iowa Mediation Services. And I guess if you have any questions at all, you can get on the internet, and
We
it's
do have a
Southwest
website.
Iowa Mediation Services, and then you can always call Dan. Right. Okay, we want to thank you very much, Dan Bechtel, for explaining this to us and giving us a better understanding about mediation services.
Thank you very much.
Till next time, here's a thought. Memories are a family album filled with images and dreams.